Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Matt Storrs, and welcome to Mattsplaining. On today's episode, I have an expert on who I'm excited to talk to. Expert, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're an expert in.
Hello, I am Rowan Zeoli. I am a tabletop role-playing game and actual play journalist, as well as being a comedian where I met Matt.
Fantastic. You would say you were an expert in tabletop RPGs and actual plays?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable about playing tabletop RPGs. I've been playing since about 2016.
Mhm.
Played earlier in my life, but the people that I played with initially were very, very rule stickler type of people. And so it
Mm.
kind of took out the fun of being able to jump into the characters. But really, tabletop RPGs as a whole are an opportunity to enter a world of collaborative creation.
Mhm.
And initially, when D&D and similar games were coming out, like Vampire the Masquerade and that sort of thing, there's a very big anti-Christian mentality that got attached to them. But one of the things a lot of people don't know is like that anti-Christian connection, it actually over time has saved a number of woodworkers, Jesus famously a woodworker. And had it not been for the tabletop role-playing game resurgence in the last decade, a lot of tabletop or table carpentry makers would have gone out of business. And this also happens to be with a lot of figure makers as well. A lot of the independent action figure, a lot of the independent figurines, a lot of the lead based companies.
Mm.
There's a big push against lead. I don't know why.
No
And
reason.
no reason whatsoever. But because of tabletop RPGs, the lead consortium of businesses have been able to thrive in those heavy metals. We're still getting them, thank goodness. And
Yeah, that lead cabal needs the business.
exactly. There's dozens of different systems, and you can adapt them to different settings. I've mentioned D&D, famously kind of a fantasy sort of situation, whereas you have Vampire the Masquerade, which is can be a fantasy setting, but often is in a very, very sexy New York setting. Often
Mm.
it's really so there's the funny thing about like people are like, oh, there's horny teenagers are playing these tabletop RPGs and they have to play through and try and solve a problem. But what's great
Mhm.
about the vampire games is that they know what you want to do. They know you want to be trying to have sex with people. And if you go down the right paths in some of those games, you get extra skill points. And that's rewarding for a lot of people.
If there's one thing nerds love, it's to fuck, actually.
Exactly. And it's with nothing else, tabletop RPGs are an opportunity to learn how to flirt. And like the characters in the games, a lot of players that play have certain archetypes that you play. So
Mhm.
there's I kind of alluded to them, the rule followers, you have the people that are a little bit more chaotic, the people that are a little less knowledgeable. And what it
Could you
can
actually go through the alignment chart for me right now?
the full alignment chart or just the player alignment chart?
The full alignment chart, if
Oh,
you
okay, so I think the easiest way to go through alignment charts is to talk about it through the guise of TV shows or famous
Mm.
movies. And so there's often you have like the lawful at the top and then the neutrals in the middle. So it's a grid of 9. And then you
Mm.
have the chaotics in the bottom. Like the Brady Bunch is a good example. And you're going to have the Brady Bunch, you're going to have Alice is in the middle. Okay, so she's a
Mhm.
true neutral. And one second, I'm actually going to pull up the Brady Bunch.
Perfect comparison. I think it's also important to note that this is hierarchical, that the lawful is at the top for a reason and the chaotic is at the bottom for a reason.
Absolutely. Okay, so what you have with the wow. Okay, so this is famously the Brady Bunch. I think that they switched around which characters were in which spots,
Mm.
but usually it was the adults in the middle spots. And so the adults in the middle and then the oldest kids on either side. So you have Marcia as the lawful good. She is the person that is pretty consistently, this is how life is supposed to go. There are a set of rules and we got to follow them. Whereas Cindy, the youngest one, is a chaotic good, where she's just wanting to do whatever she can. And if something goes haywire or her doll talks to her at some point, so be it. And then you have the other sister who
the famous other sister in the Brady Bunch.
Yes, the other sister who is great, who dates Todd Glass, which is, that's so sad that that's what I remember. But so she is a neutral good. And so she believes that there are a set of rules that are supposed to apply to everybody, but maybe they're not applying the ways in which she wants. Then you have the neutral good with the mother at the top, the chaotic neutral at the bottom being the father, because he's got a background, you know what I mean? What was the context of the end of the last marriage? And then you have all the boys on the chaotic side. So you have the oldest one, Greg. He's the chaotic, the lawful chaotic, and he wants to learn how to play the guitar to hook up with girls, but he has expectations. You have the youngest boy, chaotic evil, ultimately just pure chaos, famously going around trying to sacrifice other children at the school. Very, very dark episodes where he was the focus. And then you have
the satanic panic of it all as well. It really ties in. Truly.
And then you have the other boy, the middle kids we don't remember. He's just kind of there, but like trying to like instigate whenever he can. And what's good about some of these things is when you kind of recognize the alignment of these people and what their alignment are in your regular life, if you try and convince them to play a different alignment in the game, you can actually use tabletop RPGs as a form of therapy, because you can challenge them and be like, oh, would your character actually do that? And then they have to have empathy for the first time in their lives. And a big thing a lot of people don't recognize is the therapeutic aspects of what tabletop RPGs can do. Now, based on what you've heard so far, about how much of that would you say was accurate?
Honestly, I would say you rolled like maybe a 10 or a 12 on your history check for D&D.
Okay, fantastic. That's a pretty good roll, I think.
Yeah, I would say you definitely passed for the most part. Once we started getting into the lead cabal, we started really veering off a little bit, but I think it's important to underpin the power imbalance in these industries.
Right.
But for real though, a lot of the things that you were saying were really very true about, especially towards the end, about the nature, the therapeutic value of D&D and the capacity for collaborative creativity about these games and these systems. I think there's something really, really powerful when it comes to tabletop, and specifically actual play as a new medium. For those who don't understand, actual play is a medium in which a group of people come together and tell a story like a television show or a film through the medium of tabletop role-playing games. So they're focused on telling stories the same way they would in an improvised theater setting, but it is either in front of a camera or on a podcast and highly edited to make sure that you are telling the best kind of story you can through this medium of improvised storytelling.
Yeah, you're not getting the, hey, can I do this questions too much. You might get the beginning of that. You're not getting the, okay, well, let me
check the rule book. Let me flip through for a couple hours. We're gonna stop the game for 20 minutes.
Yeah, everybody take a break while I check. Yeah, that is the most beautiful thing, because that sometimes getting those hangups can be so difficult and derailing.
Absolutely. And I think like what you were just saying to the therapeutic aspect of it, my other main beat is psychedelics, actually.
Okay.
And there's something really fascinating, I think, about this immersive quality of tabletop role-playing games, where you are able to embody a different perspective from your own, or a similar perspective, but you're able to embody a different person than you are and experience the world through this separation a little bit. And you're able to make these decisions as you would navigate the world, in this idea of like, okay, these emotional consequences still feel real, so I can't be careless in these decisions that I'm making. And you create a reality that is alternate from your own, and you get to undo narratives that you've told yourself about how the world works. And I
Right.
think that's something really interesting about the way tabletop role-playing games have evolved as well. Like they come from this very cis-het white normative storytelling. Like this was a war game initially for people to tell
Right.
stories about like conquest and colonizing and raiding and looting. And it has evolved into a storytelling medium where people get to see themselves represented in fantasy worlds, in sci-fi worlds, in the multitude of systems, which you did touch on very well, because most people only think there's D&D. There are so many systems. There are hundreds of systems where you can tell any kind of story that you want. And there's specifically a game I really like called Wander Home,
Oh
which
yeah.
you like Wander Home?
I know the Wanderers.
Yes,
Yes.
another really good one.
Hmm.
Wander Home is this game by J Dragon in which you and your party are a group. It's a GM-less system.
Hmm.
You are a group of little forest creatures, and it's a non-combat system, so you're not meant to like fight anything, but there are interpersonal conflicts. And so it's this like homeward bound kind of energy almost.
Hmm.
And you really just get to be in this beautiful little space where you're playing pretend. It's that same kind of feeling as when you were a kid playing pretend with your friends, getting to be in this imaginary space and feel like the hero without having to do all of the violence that D&D requires.
Right, absolutely. What got me into it when I first started playing was the folks I was playing with were very open to alternative methods of resolution.
Mm.
And so it was like, oh, well, yeah, the fact that I put so many points into charisma allow me to really do a lot in this situation. And unfortunately, my first character that I made for that was based on James Franco, which which his last name was Franco spelled backwards, was Oxnarf. But
Hmm.
so as time progressed, and I used James Franco's book of short stories as a method to like, I had one of the characteristics where I used big words incorrectly.
Wait, James Franco has a book of short stories?
He does, yeah.
Also, malapropism is the word for using big words incorrectly. I
Oh,
don't, just there, my brain.
oh, that's wonderful. I did not know that. And so I would use his book and just turn to a random page every session and try and find the biggest word on the page, and then just use it incorrectly anytime. And people are like, you don't have to consistently do that every session. I'm like, I'm gonna do it every session. And
But
then
you
every
have to commit to the bit. That's the most powerful part.
exactly. And that was the most wonderful thing, because as time went on, my character was so dumb and just so full of himself, but like everybody knew that. And so like there were just continuing bits that I could do and then other people could do, and you could just play off each other for years and years. And then in every subsequent game that I've played with those folks and with other folks, it's just it's a beautiful convergence of people and backgrounds and ideas. It's so much fun.
Exactly. And I think the thing that's really beautiful about actual play as it currently is because it is currently a newly developing medium. It
Hmm.
is coming from this place where you have the critical roles where you put a camera in front of a bunch of people and for 4 hours you record them playing the game. And that has its place because it's really important for the community aspect. You get that feeling of like, oh, I'm with a bunch of friends playing the game. But there are now people in the medium like the All Night Society, like My First Dungeon, like Worlds Beyond Number, like Dimension 20 to a degree as well, that these players in the game, these independent creators, are transforming this from a documentary medium, a more experiential one,
Hmm.
into a narrative medium. And so we're taking all those things that are beautiful about the game, these experiences, and turning them into art. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out where I was going with that initially.
Well,
Yeah.
but yeah, well, no, and I think that that's the most amazing thing. As time goes on, the thing that I always struggled with when kids were playing it when I was younger was that idea of getting bogged down in the dynamics and rules as opposed
Hmm.
to the enjoyment that I got from seeing my friends be creative
Exactly.
and seeing how, like literally seeing a glint in somebody's eye and like, oh, I know what you're going to do, and I don't have to talk to you about it, but I know generally what you're thinking, and I can set you up for it. And because it's like slow improv, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Oh no, it's the truly, I interview so many actual play performers and people who run games, and so many of them are comedians and improv performers.
Right. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And it's beautiful because you don't have to be, you're in the moment, but you have the time to sit in the moment and think and like talk and figure out situations. And I think that it's even better than the instantaneous improv, because people are like, they catch on and they're trotting with you, so to speak.
Yeah, it's this long form improv. And also, like, when you're in improv, you're usually like in this space of you are actively being watched, and you know that for a fact, and you're not even supposed to go into these more serious elements. Like, improv is inherently supposed to be making something funny out of something serious. I think that's kind of the root of all comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're playing an actual play, like, yes, you are supposed to be funny because you need to break the seriousness of the narrative a little bit. That's inherently part of the medium. But
Mm-hmm.
when you are in a story with someone else and you are like in this really intentional, really heavy moment, you've built a system of trust with these people by improvising with them for so long, by having safety tools at the table, which I think are really important for a lot of people who don't know about them in the game. Using these tools to make sure that you have this magic circle of safety around you, so that way you can get to those really intense, deep emotional moments that you can't get in a real scripted narrative. You can't get in short form improv. You really can't get in any other artistic medium, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like, literally, the roll of a dice could be life or death. And
Right.
you have to be okay with that. And you have to trust the people at your table that, like, yeah, my character might be going through this, but I trust the people that I'm with to make sure that me, the player, is okay.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think is most, a friend of mine, Lawson, who runs and has created his own system, has developed his own system off of multiple systems.
Ooh,
Off
drop the name if you have it.
so he has First Fantasy, which is based on Final Fantasy.
Love.
It's absolutely fantastic. It's like Final Fantasy 9 inspired.
Ooh.
And he also has, so it's based on Index Card RPG or ICRPG.
Okay.
And so it's very, very streamlined. You aren't forced into any class initially. You can find loot, and then like you could be a barbarian one day, and then the next day you find a magical relic, and then it's like, oh, well, I could probably start doing some magic. And
Ooh, I
uh,
love that.
yeah, so it's, if you want to change stuff up, you can pretty easily. And then we just started a game where it's based on One Piece.
So it's gonna run forever, is what you're saying.
Exactly. It's going to run forever. And for the first time, he called me out some time ago, saying that every time I've played a game with him, I played some sort of healer, but somebody else had decided to be that healer role already before I joined this game. So I'm like, oh, well, we don't need two healers. I guess I can try something new. And so it's been a delight playing. It's like, oh, I get to be a guy who is a fish guy, and he
Yes.
is an archaeo. Well, I'm going to reveal it here. His main goal is to find and learn how to make a certain drink that can revive
Ooh.
people, bring energy to the world, that sort of thing.
So you're still playing a healer roundabout.
Roundabout, yes. But it is a healer based on Jimmy Buffett.
Oh.
So he's an archaeologist trying to figure out how to make the perfect margarita.
Oh, Matt, how much I love Jimmy Buffett.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a very fun game. And well, that's the thing. I'm dropping little hints that like I'm naming moves based on Jimmy Buffett songs.
Wasting away again, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. That's a beautiful little thing that you can add to it, adding personal flourishes that people will pick up on as time goes on, or just challenging your players of like, hey, you seem to do this one thing pretty consistently. How about you try something different? And then just being there to support them and saying like, yeah, like you might not know how to play that way, but like I'll give you hints as we're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this joke actually. I was at the New Jersey Web Fest, which is a huge actual play award show. I was there recently and was talking to this person, and they were like, "Yeah, I have this theory that if you collect a bunch of someone's character sheets from all the games they've ever played and given them to their therapist, they'll go, 'Yeah, this sounds about right.'"
100%.
Uh,
Absolutely.
be like we could spend the rest of the time psychoanalyzing why you always play healers. Like we don't have to, but we could. And
Yeah,
so I think the really like interesting thing about this is also like the capacity for internal growth.
absolutely.
I Every character since the first character I ever played in a tabletop role playing game has been some kind of trans way before I came out as trans or recognized that I was trans. And I
Hmm.
think that that capacity for being the person that you want to be in the real world and giving yourself the confidence to make those choices and feel solid in them in a very low risk, low consequence environment has a really radical potential for not just like personal healing, but community building.
Absolutely.
And so moving forward in like the tabletop world and the actual play world, there's this really big focus within the community that I haven't noticed in maybe any other creative community, except for maybe improv, but a
Hmm.
little less so still. This like really radical, progressive ethos at the base of it that's like, no gods, no masters. We are all here in this new creative medium where we get to decide what the rules are. We get to decide what a quote unquote hierarchy looks like. We get to decide what this community looks like. And instead of just replicating the dominant hegemony of the world at large of our American culture, we get to imagine new worlds, which is what tabletop games are for. You get to imagine a new idea, a new way of living.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most fascinating things because it's so rare that we get the opportunity to truly create something new and lay out the groundwork of how it's going to work and how it could be replicated by other people. And so
Exactly.
having people having gone through systems of like, oh yeah, I kind of wish this would have gone better, but then they're gaining that experience and then they're put into an opportunity in a situation where they can kind of be like, oh yeah, well, people seem to like this, let's try and make it the way we wanted those other things to go. And that's just it's a beautiful and inspiring thing.
Absolutely. 100%. We gotta play a game together, Matt. You, me, Max, Chinook Tessera. Chinook Tessera, another New York comedian, is a
Hmm.
producer for My First Dungeon, the show
Oh,
that I was
great.
talking about. Honestly, I will sing the highest praises of that show literally everywhere I go because I think what they're doing with the medium is going to push it in the direction that I would like to see it go. But truly, we got to sit down and play because that would be the best. A bunch of New York comedians sitting around a table and playing some actual play or playing some TTRPGs. Incredible.
Yeah, that sounds like a delight, and I am absolutely down. Rowan, this has been so enlightening and so much fun. I have enjoyed myself immensely. If people wanted to learn more about tabletop RPGs or actual plays, or wanted to learn more about you, where would you recommend that they go?
Yes, absolutely. I am on all of the various social medias at Rowan Zeoli. I very fortunate to have my name be the only one of it.
Heck yeah.
Uh, you can find me. I contribute to Polygon. I also contribute to a site called The Fundamentals, where I do a lot of really in-depth dive with actual plays and TTRPG creators. I'm also a staff writer for Tabletop News, a new news show that's coming out, where weekly we will be talking and rounding up all of the tabletop board game, card game, actual play, nerdy news. And you can find that at Watch Tabletop or on YouTube at Tabletop News.
Rowan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and joining me today.
Thank you so much, Matt. This is truly so much fun. It's truly always a delight and pleasure talking to you. You are a light in this world, and I hope you get told that as often as you deserve.
Thank you so much. That is so kind. I feel the very same way about you. It's always an absolute delight to get to talk to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Excellent. My name is Matt Storrs, and this has been Mattsplaining. Quick shout out to Ryan Lawson, who made the theme music for Mattsplaining. He's part of Beat Blender Studios, which can be found at Beat Blender Studios on Instagram and TikTok. Or if you're in the market for some amazing music, you can contact him directly at beatblenderstudios@gmail.com.